It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday, March the 19th. The House Criminal Justice Subcommittee is now in session. Mr. Clerk, let's take the roll, please. Take the roll, folks. Remember, give him a call. Let's take the roll. All right, Mr. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Mr. Chairman, there are 7 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have personal orders? Representative Scarborough.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got 2 police chiefs here today, Chief Turner and Chief Vess. If you'll raise your hand to recognize you. Glad to have you here this morning. Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Ashley.
I've got my wife in the audience, Angela, and one of her good friends, Tracy's with her from Sevier County Tourism here today. Just like to welcome them.
Anyone else? I've got a friend, Mr. David Tucker. He's in here somewhere. There he is. Good to see you. Oh, yes, and my son. My son is here today, too. Yeah, right out there in the middle, yeah. Cole, he's with us. Thank you for reminding me of that. I knew there was something. Yeah, go ahead and stand up, son, so they can see who you are. There you go. All right, we'll go to our Sergeant of Arms, Mr. Tyler Muniz, for our weekly words of wisdom.
Good morning, everyone. We have a special, very special words of wisdom today from a Joe Dirte. Life's a garden. Dig it.
Thank you very much. All right, members, let's jump in the calendar here. Item number 3, House Bill 445 by Representative Hulsey will be rolled 1 week. Item 5, House Bill 305 by Representative Gillespie, roll 1 week. Item 7, House Bill 907 by Representative Garrett will be off notice. Item number 12, House Bill 478 by Representative Butler, roll 1 week. Item 13, House Bill 588 by Representative Butler, off notice. Item 17, House Bill 1346 by Representative Reeves, off notice. Item 37, House Bill 1026 by Representative Russell is off notice. And then item number, yeah, we'll take care of that in a minute. All righty. Brings us to item number 1, House Bill 322 by Chairman Todd.
Motion.
You are recognized. There are some amendments. Do you have an amendment code you wish to proceed with?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have amendment drafting code 4483.
Amendment code 4483. All right, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to have that amendment adopted if I could, please.
All right, questions called. Any objections? Seeing none, we're voting to attach amendment code 4483 on the House Bill 322. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You adopt on House Bill 322 as amended. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment makes the bill, and this legislation creates the crime of human smuggling. It's needed because there's a distinction between human trafficking and human smuggling that has gone unaddressed thus far in the law. Human smuggling victims are distinct from other victims of human trafficking who are often trafficked by family members, relatives, and friends in small numbers, typically 1s and 2s. The different nature of human smuggling, and especially the criminal and terrorist organizations behind it, require a finer point to the law. Human smuggling involves crossing international borders, involves trafficking larger number of victims at a time, controlled by organized crime in the form of terrorist cartels and others. A whole and new illicit underground industry was built up in the U.S. over the past 4 years due to the malfeasant border policies and rampant illegal immigration. And so we're trying to address that in this. And we have worked with all of the organizations that have concerns in this realm, TBI and other law enforcement. And they're, as I understand, supportive of it or neutral. And so I'll just bring it to the committee and ask for your approval.
Well, thank you for that explanation. I do have members on the list, but we also have testimony. So would we want to hear testimony first? Okay. Without objection, we're going out of session. Hear from Ashley Warbington and Joanna. Help me. I'll let you say your last name. Sorry, I don't want to butcher it.
I was waiting to see if you tried or not.
I will. Cohane?
Cohane, you're so close.
Cohane. All right.
Yeah,
All right. I can do that. All right. What we'll do is introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. You'll introduce yourself for the record. You have 3 minutes. We'll open it up for questions if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ashley Warbington, and I'm here today to speak in strong opposition to Section 7 of HB 322 that seeks to criminalize harboring individuals who have entered or remained in the United States without authorization. First and foremost, this bill raises profound legal concerns. Federal law already criminalizes harboring undocumented individuals and imposes severe penalties for those who knowingly conceal or shield them from detection. Immigration enforcement is unequivocally a federal responsibility. States cannot create parallel laws that intrude upon federal immigration authority without violating the constitutional principle of federal preemption. This bill risks exposing Tennessee to costly and unnecessary litigation, but the consequences extend beyond legal implications. It threatens our communities by criminalizing basic human decency. Tennesseans who offer support or shelter could face fines or worse for showing compassion. HB 322 forces an impossible choice: obey the law or follow their morals. I speak to you today not as an outsider, but as someone personally affected by this bill. My husband is undocumented, and together we have built a life in Tennessee. Will this bill criminalize me for living with him? If I refuse to open the door to ICE agents trying to separate us, will Tennessee prosecute me for protecting my family? This bill forces people like me to constantly question whether protecting our families will make us criminals. This legislation would disproportionately harm immigrant families, particularly those living in mixed status households like mine. My son attends a Title I school where the majority of students are Latino, and many of their families are undocumented. If this becomes law, individuals offering support to loved ones in times of crisis simply by providing a place to stay could face prosecution. Let me give you a specific example. Imagine my son is having a play date and ICE shows up at my door. If I lock that door, exercising my legal right to require a valid judicial warrant, will Tennessee punish me? This fear is not new. My grandmother was a first-generation American born to Italian immigrants who faced persecution, suspicion, and discrimination. Italian immigrants, like many others, were blamed for societal problems and targeted with violence. My grandmother's family depended on the kindness and support of their neighbors to survive. Under this bill, those same acts of compassion would be criminalized. We must ask ourselves, what kind of society are we building if we choose to punish kindness, compassion, and humanity? Law should reflect our values, and this provision sends the wrong message. I leave you with this question: what will future generations think of us if we criminalize those who choose compassion over fear? Let us be remembered as people who stood for humanity, not division. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ma'am?
My name is Johanna Cohane. I'm from Robertson County. Thank you, Chair, Committee, and Sponsor for allowing me to speak. I'm opposed to this bill, specifically Section 7 of this bill. Once you start criminalizing aid to other human beings, a decision is made, and it is not a good direction. While it's aimed at immigrants today, it can be aimed at others later. There have been other times in history where the people in power passed laws to criminalize helping others, and when the people in power passed laws to separate and dehumanize others. Upon reading Section 7, my mind went to the story of Victor Kugler, one of the men arrested along with Anne Frank and her family. His charge was helping Jews. I know nobody wants to hear comparisons to Germany in the 1930s and 40s, but I do believe if we ignore history, we are doomed to repeat it. And when you criminalize aiding others, you're going down the path of repeating one of the worst moments in human history. Sometimes it's hard to see the beginning steps that lead to those moments. In her work, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil, Hannah Arendt wrote of Eichmann, Except for an extraordinary diligence in looking out for his personal advancement, he had no motives at all. He merely, to put the matter colloquially, never realized what he was doing. It was sheer thoughtlessness, something by no means identical with stupidity, that predisposed him to become one of the greatest criminals of that period. And if this is banal and even funny, if with this best will in the world one cannot extract any diabolical or demonic profundity from Eichmann, this is still far from calling it commonplace. That such remoteness from reality and such thoughtlessness can wreak more havoc than all the evil instincts taken together, which perhaps are inherent in man. Eichmann was an ordinary person carrying out a bureaucratic task. He separated the actions he was taking from the consequences they would have, and I believe that is what you are in danger of doing here by creating a bill that will criminalize helping other humans. The first 6 sections of this bill do a lot of good, but I ask that you consider removing Section 7. This will affect families with potential for children to be in a position where living with a parent is a criminal offense, or setting neighbor against neighbor or spouse against spouse for what should be a civil matter. And I would like to leave you with this. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have questions? Representative Powell.
Off with Mrs. Warmington. Could you just explain, and you touched on this in some of your testimony, but just the basic everyday life things that something like this would put you in fear of, and others who are in your situation would have to deal with, and how that impacts your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think this bill does speak to everyday daily tasks. Every time my son may be playing with a student from school, we are hanging out with family members from his school. As I mentioned, it is a majority Latino school. Anything that we do, any outing that we do, anytime maybe that we may be in fear of safety, and if I were to lock the door, would that be criminalized if ICE were to show up? If we were stopped driving somewhere by ICE and we didn't get out of the car, is the state of Tennessee going to criminalize me? I know what my rights are as it pertains to immigration enforcement, and will my state try to take that further? And I think that's the fear. And this bill makes families like mine be afraid for daily tasks, everyday daily things that we do. Is it trying to make families like mine not want to be in Tennessee anymore? Is it trying to push us out to a state that won't pass a bill like this? Because it certainly feels that way.
And just to follow up, I mean, I know a lot of these children, they've been in this country now for a long time. They might have been brought here illegally, but they have been in our state now, in our country. Can you speak to the impact that you would think that yourself or others would experience with the loss of a parent, or the loss of their friends being taken away, and how that would impact them negatively, emotionally, and in other ways?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, and as you mentioned, Representative Powell, many of these families, the majority of immigrants have lived in the United States for over 15 years. For example, in my situation, Alejandro has been here for over 20 years. One of the things I would like to express is, can you imagine the life that someone has built, the friendships, the business connections, everything in that amount of time? And just speaking about my personal example, like my son has many friends, and of course he is afraid for all of his friends. And there's a general sense of fear at the school, even though it's an elementary school, and many of the adults think that the kids are not affected, or that words aren't being used like deportation around them, but they feel it. Whether or not it's being talked about outright, it's definitely felt amongst the children. And I can sense it every time I am there. I sense it in my son. I know that they feel this energy, this negativity, and this fear.
Thank you.
Representative Salinas.
Hi, my questions are for Mrs. Warrington. I remember some of your testimony during the special session. Has your husband ever committed a crime?
He has not.
Okay. I think your family describes many of our immigrant families where everyone has a mixed status in their family. Not everyone is uniform. And I think, these bills really break up families. That's what they're designed to do. Are you taking the steps for your husband to become a legal citizen? And can you describe how that process is?
Yes, we began the process in 2017, and we still are not finished. He is in the final step. We are waiting for an interview, but that still doesn't make him safe with any of these laws being passed at the state level or the federal level. It's been a long and expensive process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for our guest while we're out of session? Seeing none. Thank y'all for being with us. We're going back into session. On the bill, I have Representative Powell for the sponsor.
Thank you. I'm opposed to this bill. I'm proud to represent a very diverse community, recognize the impacts of the immigrant community. I know there are countless children in my district who were brought here through no fault of their own and are now being targeted. And I think this bill sets a very dangerous precedent. Last year, I had the privilege of taking a trip, father-son trip with my son, and we visited the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. And when I think of this bill, I see parallels to those, thinking about those brave people that helped protect and harbored people who were fleeing slavery. Right now, these immigrants are being targeted. We have children who face a threat every single day. They're in the schools in my district. They're in schools with my children. And I think that when this bill sets a very dangerous precedent to not only families, but to churches, to nonprofits, and to other organizations that are simply trying to serve people in our communities. And you've got to remember, there are mixed families. We just heard testimony of somebody who is somebody who is here legally and someone who is not, and they've been here for 20 plus years and been very productive members of our society. So I'd like for you to answer, if you could, how this bill will not impact churches and nonprofits that are seen as safe places for members of the community to go to now being targeted by the Attorney General and being at risk for being shut down.
Thank you for the question. This creates a Class E offense for human smuggling, creates a Class A felony offense for aggravated human smuggling, expands the offense of human trafficking to include promoting the prostitution of a minor. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about here. The NGOs that are not participating in this type of activity will not be held accountable. There's going to be there's obviously a process for bringing charges and going through the process of proving that someone is violating this law. So just because they're performing some assistance doesn't mean they're guilty of this. So they've got to fall strictly under the wording here. The AG is authorized under this to bring an action in state court against a person or organization that is committing or has committed or is about to commit human trafficking offense or aggravated human trafficking. And in the bill, that's defined as involuntary labor, servitude, trafficking persons for forced labor or services, trafficking for commercial sex act, patronizing prostitution, promoting the prostitution of a minor. So I don't know of any NGOs that are doing the right thing that would fall under that.
If I could, I have heard from multiple organizations in my community and around the state that are very troubled by this bill. They think it's going to have very broad impact that is going to allow the Attorney General to meddle in our worship services, to meddle in our nonprofits that are providing basic human services to people. And I think it sets a very dangerous precedent. And I understand what you just said, but those groups are very concerned about this legislation. They oppose it. And for that reason, I do too. And I wish that, the testimony we heard, I think this is going to be up in court because there's already federal law to deal with these issues. So I oppose the bill, but happy to respond.
I just renew my motion.
Thank you. Any other questions, Representative Salinas?
Representative Todd, are you familiar with what a U visa is?
Would you repeat that?
Are you familiar with what a U visa is?
I am not.
Okay, so a U visa is usually granted to people that have experienced violence within our community. So you can go from being an undocumented person to being in the process of becoming a documented person. And these are people that usually have suffered a lot already. And there are nonprofits that are helping them navigate that process because it's not a very easy process to navigate. Would someone that has already experienced violence in our community and when we allow and we pass laws that allow our local law enforcement to participate and function as ICE agents, it puts communities in danger. And this is why a lot of people seek U visas, because they are the victims of a lot of violence. So if there is a nonprofit that is helping someone navigate a U visa process, would they be charged with a felony under your law?
Well, again, I'm not familiar with that process, but I'll read some more details to you that's in Section 5 of the bill that describes human smuggling, which I think gets in the area that you're talking about. If someone or an entity transports one or more individuals for the purpose of commercial advantage or private financial gain with the intent to conceal that individual from the law enforcement officer. I'm going to skip through some of the other legalese there, but that's the intent here. While knowing that person has illegally entered or remained in the United States, and again, there's a financial gain that they have to have here. Then that creates an offense. And also, if they encourage or induce one or more persons to enter or remain in the state in violation of federal law, as determined by our U.S. immigration folks, by concealing, harboring, or shielding those persons from detection. And then it names over the felonies. So if it would obviously have to fit that description in order for them to be in violation of this.
So if these organizations that are helping these people are receiving donations from the community at large, is that considered financial gain? And
that would certainly be up to a court to decide if there were charges even brought. And the AG is going to be the one that would determine whether it even meets the requirement for that.
Well, I think we're punishing people in our organizations in our community that are trying to help people that have already suffered a lot. And it hurts my heart as a Tennessean to see these organizations that are trying to do good in our community to have to use part of their budget to fight something in the courts, which is not, an easy thing to do. It's not, I know like here in Tennessee, we love to be in the courts, but that's expensive for a nonprofit that is focusing on helping people that have already been through a lot. And, I'm glad my family came to Memphis when we came to Memphis, because I don't know that we would have been able, I don't think my life would have been able to be saved had I been diagnosed now. because when we came in, there's just many nonprofits in Memphis that provide housing. I'm talking about the FedEx, Ronald McDonald House, Target House, that provide housing for people that come from all over the world. And we don't know if these people have documentation or not. And I know that in the way that you have represented your bill, and you think that these organizations may not be impacted, but it's so broad and it doesn't have enough detail that they would be liable to be in the courts. And so for that, I'm a no on this bill, and I hope that everyone that considers themselves a Christian will vote no against this bill.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate your comments and concerns. And I think we have similar concerns. We are very concerned about those, however they got into our communities, being taken advantage of. Then that's what we're trying to address, because there are folks that are literally taking advantage of these same vulnerable people that you reference. And we're trying to make sure that that stops. That's the heart of this, is we don't want to see, and my community, my supporters, my constituents, and I would dare say most of Tennesseans do not want individuals taken advantage of. We don't want them in a position where, especially they're against their will, being solicited or trafficked or harbored against their will for someone else's gain. And so we're trying to tackle that. And this is just, an area of the law that we've discovered that is missing a piece, and we're trying to close that loop so that folks don't get off the hook when they're doing this. But I appreciate the committee's consideration.
Representative Atchley. The question has been called. Objection? Seeing none. We're now voting to send House Bill 322 as amended on the full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 2 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 322 as amended moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, committee.
Item number 2, House Bill 1010 by the Chairlady Moody. You have a motion and a second. You recognize. No amendments.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill, current law provides a process in which a person holding any public office may be removed. Currently, only the state attorney general, district attorneys general, county attorneys, and city attorneys within their respective jurisdictions may institute such actions. This has proven to be an issue in cases where the locally elected district attorney has recused themselves to avoid potential conflicts of interest. This bill adds language to explicitly allow a district attorney general to appoint another district attorney general or an assistant to that DA to conduct the removal actions. And with that explanation.
Representative Powell.
I guess my concern here is, and I understand the reasoning for the bill, but I always think these decisions, you're talking about removing a local elected official. I always think that decision, if we truly believe in local government and local power and power is closest to the people, why would we transfer that power to someone who is not elected by those people to then be removed? I mean, you're talking about a pretty broad step. I mean, I don't think we should allow Kentucky to have a process to remove our governor. I mean, that's essentially what you're saying here is you're fine with having another jurisdiction remove that local elected official, not their local people, but a different area that is unelected by those people. Could you explain the reasoning for that and how that's justified?
I know that this bill just does have statewide application. And so it's a way for the people to have redress in instances where their locals are not able to carry out and let their voices be heard.
I guess the follow-up to that is you're talking about redress, but you're talking about redress not by the people, but by different people. And I think that's a major problem, and we're setting a very dangerous precedent by passing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Ashley.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, I thought you were
No.
waving at me a minute ago.
No, I just pointing at
Oh, you was pointing at
Representative
him.
Powell wanted to be
Okay.
recognized.
All right. Any other questions for our sponsor? No. Okay. That objection, we'll be voting now to send House Bill 1010 on the full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 2 nays.
Thank you. The ayes prevail. House Bill 1010 will move on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Yes, ma'am. Good to see you. We miss you. Item number 4, House Bill 661 by Chairman White. We will roll to the Hill. Item number 6, House Bill 696. Representative Gillespie. All right, you're recognized. You have an amendment code 4438. Is that the amendment you wish to proceed with?
4438. Yes, sir, it is.
All right, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. What this is, this would establish a statewide a sexual assault coordinator or response team coordinator position. And the amendment does make the bill. So if we could just go ahead and get that added on, that would be great.
All right, questions called on the amendment. Any objections? Seeing none, we're voting to attach amendment code 4438 on the House Bill 696. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes prevail. You adopt on House Bill 696 as amended. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I bring this legislation on behalf of the sexual assault centers statewide to establish a statewide SART, Sexual Assault Response Team Coordinator position. Last session, Representative Davis and Senator Massey passed the SART Act, requiring SART teams in each local law enforcement jurisdiction across the state. These SART teams are crucial to each localities in response to sexual violence to ensure victims are receiving necessary services and offenders are being held accountable. And I want to make sure that last part is taken seriously here because this is a two-prong approach. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details, but this is an extremely personal to me. I have know people that have been affected. Some are no longer with us. And I just feel honored to carry this legislation and to work with the victims advocates across the state and locally in my area as well. I have some people here that would love to testify if y'all would like more information, but with that, I renew my motion. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We do have, do you know who's here to testify?
Yes, sir.
I've got several on the list, so I just want to make sure they are all.
Well, I know that Rachel Freeman is here and Katrina Brown should be here as well. Are those people on the list?
And Jennifer Eskew? All right. Well, I'll tell you what, ladies, if y'all don't mind, we'll go out of session. Y'all can come up and have a seat here. Good morning. If you will, we'll go one at a time. You'll introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 3 minutes for comments. We'll just keep sliding down the line and then we'll open it up for a discussion from the committee.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Freeman. I'm the president and CEO of the Sexual Assault Center.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Katrina Brown and I'm a registered nurse at Vanderbilt University Medical Center.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Eskew. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence.
Thank you for having us here today. We're very excited about this piece of legislation. As Representative Gillespie said a few minutes ago, this started with a bill that was passed last year that required SART teams across the state. However, there was no coordination of those SART teams. So what this bill would do would help provide oversight, technical assistance, and support to all jurisdictions as they develop sexual assault response teams. Some of the things that we've seen when there are successful, high-functioning SARTs working together in a community is that we have more people, more sexual assault victims report to law enforcement. Here in Nashville, because of the high-functioning sexual assault response team, we've seen an increase of up to 70% of people who come forward to get a medical legal rape exam report to law enforcement because of this team. So it's a very positive thing. It decreases crime, and it increases the likelihood that sexual assault survivors will get the treatment and the support they need. This bill mirrors SIPIT teams, Child Protective Investigative Teams. That is something that's been in legislation for quite some time, and it also mirrors the Domestic Violence State Coordinating Council. Neither of those are coordinated by a government entity, and so we are simply mirroring that and think that so much good can come from having a coordinator who helps provide support to make sure these SARTs can get up and running and help survivors across our state.
As part of the sexual assault response team in Davidson County, I've been able to develop working relationships around a table with advocates, law enforcement, and district attorneys alike. Our working relationship allows us to work together to problem solve and celebrate successes in our response to serving victims of violence. Most of our patients present through the hospital system or through the healthcare system seeking a forensic exam. So we're really that entry point. In a normal workday, a registered nurse does not have access to a district attorney to ask how our exam may impact the criminal justice process for the patient after they get discharged from the hospital. Being a part of the SART team allows me to develop those relationships to be able to answer questions both in real time and then problem solve on the back end with our community partners.
So with the coalition, we just wanted to clarify that, first of all, we currently coordinate the Domestic Violence State Coordinating Council, which is a very successful interdisciplinary team. Representative Littleton is part of that, that provides support and coordination for all of the different systems coming together to support victims of domestic violence and ensure the system is working for them. And as part, if we were to house the SART coordinator, we wouldn't be providing any kind of supervision or oversight to different groups. What we would be doing would be to help ensure that they have the support and the training and the understanding of best practices that they need to be functional in the way that the General Assembly intended when they passed the law.
Thank you, ladies. First on my list, Representative Powell.
I just want to thank you all for coming up here. Obviously, a very important issue. I know how important it is to coordinate. Specifically, have somebody that can, and we have different resources, unfortunately, as you know, in different parts of the state, and make sure that everyone has access to those resources and have the statewide coordinator to help facilitate different parts of our state who might not have the same resources. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here. And hopefully this bill passes and gets funded. Thank you.
Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to recognize that we have a member in the audience today who's standing there proudly in the back of the room. I don't think he has a item on the calendar, but I think he's here to listen to the testimony and is particularly proud of one of the individuals that is testifying here. And I want to thank all of you ladies, particularly Ms. Freeman, for the work that you do. It's extremely important. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our guests? Representative Scarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Freeman and her team came by to see me yesterday, an impressive group of folks she brought with you, very passionate about the cause. And again, again, it's going to be a great challenge for one person to do that job on that. And that's one thing we talked about yesterday, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Just checking. You raised your finger. I was just. Okay. Shirley Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank you guys too. And I look forward to working with you as well on the domestic violence. Everybody knows that's where my heart's been with children and families since I've been here. So I appreciate the job that you do and thank y'all for being here today.
If no one else has a question, I do. Just and it's one of these, it's a technical thing, I guess, but if this goes through, who chooses this coordinator?
So that would be the Tennessee Coalition. It's where it would be housed. So
Okay.
we would work together, and we're a membership program. So programs like Rachel's are all part of the coalition.
And so that coordinator would answer to that coalition. So
So the coalition would be the supervisor of the statewide coordinator. And this is a best practice model. There are several other states across our country who have statewide SART coordinators to provide that support and technical assistance to SARTs as they develop. And as we've said, this position has no authority over any other entity. It is just simply to ensure that our state, regardless of the size of the jurisdiction, regardless of whether it's an urban or a rural community, they have the same ability to have the resources that are needed to follow best practices. So it's really trying to provide consistent, coordinated community response in every community. And it will be a big job, but I think it's the place to start. And then maybe with time, we would add on.
well, thank you all so much. Any other questions for our guest? Yes, sir. Representative Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, how will it work with law enforcement and your all's relation with the law enforcement community? How will that work?
So according to best practice standards, there are a number of different multidisciplinary team members who should be a part of a sexual assault response team. Law enforcement is one of those. Depending on the size of the community, it could be just the police department. It could be a university police department as well. The reason law enforcement are involved in these teams is because we want to see more people report to law enforcement after they've experienced a sexual assault. And when they sit at that table together with a SART team, we have the ability to ensure that there's trauma-informed investigation and that law enforcement and advocates and medical professionals all support the same person. And it encourages more people to report because the victims trust when those teams work together well. If someone comes to the sexual assault center and works with an advocate and the advocate can say, we have a great relationship with law enforcement because of the sexual assault response team, that victim is more likely to report to law enforcement. We know that most sexual offenders offend multiple times before they are ever caught. This team ensures that we are working together to not only support the victims, but to protect the community and stop this perpetuation of violence.
So law enforcement will not answer.
Law enforcement is simply a team member.
Okay, that was my main concern. Okay.
Sorry.
Any other questions for our guest? Seeing none, thank you all for being with us today. We're going to go back into session. Representative Gillespie.
Thank you so much, Chair and Committee, and thank you all so much for helping me out there and everything that y'all do for our communities. To just reiterate some of the things that were said in committee, I just wanted to address Georgia, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana, Virginia, Oregon, New Jersey, Kentucky, Minnesota all already do this. This is really a best practice and it's gaining momentum. So I did want to make sure that we're not the first doing this. It does work. And then secondly, I wanted to just address the law enforcement concern. I've had some conversations with law enforcement. I think if anyone listening or watching checks my record on law enforcement, that I hope my word is there. And I've received no negative feedback from them at all. with us. So thank you so much, and I renew my motion.
Are you asking us to check your criminal history? You said your record with law enforcement, is there a long record there? Don't answer that. Welcome back. Yes, sir, Leader Lamberth.
Move previous question.
Previous question called. Any objection? Seeing none, we're voting to send House Bill 696 as amended to full judiciary. Any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, thank you. The ayes prevail. House Bill 696 as amended moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you.
Item number 8, House Bill 995 by Representative Rutter. There she is. You're recognized on the bill. There is an amendment code 4233. You wish to proceed with that amendment?
I would like very much to put that on.
All
please.
right. Well, your question's been called on the amendment. Any objections? Seeing none, we're voting to adopt Amendment Code 4233 on the House Bill 995. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? The ayes prevail. You adopt or own your bill as amended. You're recognized.
I want to go ahead and explain what the amendment does. It just adds that alcohol-related immunity does not apply to TABC licensees and their employees while they're at work. A couple of years ago, we passed legislation that gave limited immunity protections to someone who in good faith called for emergency medical help if they thought a person was experiencing a drug overdose. House Bill 995 would extend those limited immunity protections to include alcohol-related misdemeanor violations that appear in minors under the age of 21 who might be experiencing an alcohol-related overdose. This bill also adds language to clarify that overdose can be related to drugs or alcohol. This bill, of course, aims to save lives of young Tennesseans by reducing the fear that would make a call reducing fear and increasing the likelihood that someone would actually make that call to 911 to help save a young person's life who might be experiencing an overdose on alcohol. With that being said, Mr. Chairman and committee, I do have someone here that was directly affected by overdose. She and her family have been directly affected by alcohol overdose. And if you would allow her to please come up and share the story of her brother.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. We'll go out of session. We have on the list here Jenna Feinblum. Is that correct? Finblum? Sorry. All right. If you will, introduce yourself for the record and you'll have 3 minutes for comments.
Chairman and committee members, thank you for your time. My name is Jenna Finblum, and I'm here today because of my brother, Brett Finblum. Brett died from an alcohol overdose when he was 18 years old. The night that he died, Brett was at a party with some friends just a couple weeks before heading off to college. On that night, Brett drank too much too quickly, resulting in an alcohol overdose. His friends pretty quickly realized that something was wrong, but they were too afraid to call 911 because of the fear of the legal consequences that would follow. Several of them had previously been arrested for underage drinking in the past, and others had never been arrested before, but again, feared the legal consequences. So because of this, they hesitated to call. Many of them actually fled the scene because of the fear of legal consequences that would follow. And they ended up waiting too long to call 911. But by the time that they did, Brett's heart had been stopped for too long, and he was later declared brain dead. While Brett's story happened in the state of Indiana, this issue knows no borders. I attended the University of Tennessee, and I saw firsthand how common it is for young people to drink too much, too quickly, and to hesitate to call 911 because they feared getting in trouble. So with all of this, currently Tennessee does have a Good Samaritan overdose law that provides immunity to individuals who seek medical help for someone experiencing a drug overdose, shielding them from various drug-related charges. However, this protection doesn't extend to alcohol overdoses and the relating alcohol offenses, even though alcohol overdoses can be just as deadly. So that's why I'm here today, and to propose an amendment to this law. This amendment would extend immunity to alcohol overdoses and alcohol-related offenses as well, ensuring that if somebody calls for help due to an alcohol overdose, due to somebody experiencing an alcohol overdose, that caller and the person who provides medical and seeks medical assistance too will be immune from prosecution or arrest for various alcohol-related charges, including underage drinking. Overall, the goal here is simple. It's to remove the fear of legal consequences so that young people do not hesitate to call 911 when someone's life is on the line. You might ask if we know whether this type of law is successful, and the answer is yes. Now Indiana has a law like this on the books, and I can tell you personally that my family and I have heard 56 different stories over the past decade where a young person's life has been saved because somebody felt safe enough to make that call because they knew that they had this immunity provided to them. And these are just the personal anecdotes that have been relayed to my family and I over the years. So that's why I urge Tennessee to join the 43 other states that have Good Samaritan overdose laws pertaining to alcohol overdoses. This amendment will prevent unnecessary deaths due to alcohol overdoses and ensure that what happened to my family and my brother doesn't happen to families and individuals here in Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Representative Powell.
I just want to thank you for coming here. I'm sorry for your loss. I actually have two friends that have lost children to alcohol overdose where they were at a party, and a very similar story. So I was actually surprised to realize this wasn't already on the books. So I appreciate Representative Rutter carrying this bill. It's very important, and hopefully just admire your courage and you honoring the memory of your brother by passing these laws will save other lives. So thank you.
Any other questions for our guest or comments? Seeing none, thank you for being with us today. We're going to go back into session. Representative Rutter, we're back on your bill. You got any other comments you need to make?
I would just urge everyone to please support this legislation, and let's do give that immunity to someone who might make that phone call to save a young person's life.
Well, thank you. Chair Lady Littleton's on my list.
Question. Call for previous question.
Previous question. Any objections? Seeing none. We're now voting to send House Bill 995 as amended to full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 995 as amended moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Item number 9, House Bill 856 by Representative Campley. We will roll to the Hill. Item number 10, House Bill 973. Representative McCalman, do you have an amendment? No, sir, you do not. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're quicker than I am this morning. Clearly, I need another cup of coffee. Chairman, members, what House Bill 973 does is simply extend the statute of limitations on pretty much every sex crime in the state from 25 years to 30 years and civilly from 15 years to 30 years, both instances past the 18th birthday of the individual. Last year, we applied this civilly to human trafficking. Figured this should cover the whole gamut for people who've been victims of sex crimes. So with that, I stand ready for questions and I renew my motion.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Questions for the sponsor? Questions been called. Any objection? Seeing none, we're now voting to send House Bill 973 on the full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 ayes, 0 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 973 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. Always a pleasure.
Item number 11, House Bill 874 by Representative Martin. We will roll 3 spaces. Item 14, House Bill 729 by Representative Kiesling. You are recognized. There is an amendment code 3830.
Yes, Chairman, actually there's actually two amendments. That's true. Let's just start with that one. Yes. 4631's drafting code on that first one. I hope you have a second one.
The one that I have is 3830. We'll look through our stack of amendments here, but
Okay. No.
3830 is the only one that we have.
Oh, my. No. I do not. I don't even have that one. I am so sorry for the confusion.
Well, no, there's this amendment was with the original sponsor with the bill, but when you had to have that amendment redrafted. So
Forgive me.
I'm wondering if
I apologize. I'm on I'm sorry. HB 743 is the one I thought.
No, so we're on House Bill 729.
729. Oh my gosh. It's up in the office then.
We'll roll you three spaces.
Can you roll me?
Yes, sir. I'll roll
All
you
right,
three
thank you,
spaces.
sir.
We'll come back to you.
I'm very sorry, committee. Thank you.
I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to jump back because I see Representative Martin in the room. We're going to take him up here. All right, you're recognized on House Bill 874. There's an amendment code 5512. Do you wish to proceed with that amendment?
I do, sir.
All right, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, committee and chair. This one is a bill that came from my local DA and his lead investigator involving protecting children against sexual exploitation. So currently what's happening in Tennessee is when an electronic service provider, when we subpoena an individual, the electronic service provider can reach back out to that person that's about to get subpoenaed. So what ends up happening is those records can be deleted before the individuals show up to get the records. So currently when that happens, that puts our information at risk. The cops are then at risk when they go into that environment because the person knows that they're coming, and then the records and information can be deleted. So what this will do is help stop that loophole, closes that to where they cannot reach out to that individual. But then we also added an amendment on there on the backside that gives the service provider up to 90 days to send that information or to allow that individual to know that they are coming for that information. And with that, I stand ready for questions.
Well, thank you. We're still on the amendment, but you may have described the entire kit and
That's
caboodle
right, it
there.
was all
So
there.
any questions on the amendment for the sponsor? All right, questions called on the amendment. Any objections? Seeing none, we're voting to adopt amendment code 5512 on to House Bill 874. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes prevail. You adopt. We're back on your bill as amended. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting to send House Bill 874 as amended to full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 874 is amended, moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Members, let's go to item number 15. That is going to be House Joint Resolution 147 by Representative Hilton Haynes. You are recognized on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This resolution will urge the state to strictly regulate kratom or even an outright ban on the sale of kratom in Tennessee. And with your permission, I will read the resolution. I won't do a good job like Daniel, but I'm going to read the resolution, and then I ask that we can go out of session and hear from Karen Davenport, who lost her son.
Absolutely. Please proceed.
Thank you. Whereas an estimated 1.7 million Americans aged 12 and older currently use mitragynine or kratom to self-treat various medical conditions, and whereas kratom mimics the opioids currently problematic for abuse, addiction, and lethal side effects, yet the substance can be legally purchased by adults in Tennessee, and whereas popularly referred to as gas station heroin, kratom is sold in capsule, powder, and liquid extract form at convenience stores across the state and can often be found between the gum and drink selections. And whereas the myriad formulations of kratom have various concentrations and doses and are not accompanied by specific information about ingredients, purity, dosing associated with various uses, drug interactions, or any warnings regarding the documented cases of overdose, hepatic liver failure, and possible death. And whereas from 2021 to 2023, more than 2,000 fatal kratom-related overdoses were recorded from 40 reporting states and Washington, D.C., and reports of kratom-only fatal overdoses are now recorded by medical examiners. And whereas kratom is promoted to have a wide range of benefits and very few side effects, but this herbal dietary supplement is actually banned in 2 nations where the native plant is grown, is a controlled substance in at least 16 countries, and is banned altogether in Germany, Australia, and Sweden. And whereas several states are beginning to regulate the storage, distribution, and sale of kratom, while others have outright banned it in any form. And whereas states choosing to ban kratom have added the substance to their lists of controlled substances as a scheduled drug to reflect its abuse, addiction potential, and reported side effects. And whereas the tragic consequences of the unregulated sale of this substance are demonstrated by the untimely death of Matthew Davenport, who died on March 18th, 2024, from a lethal interaction between his doctor-prescribed medications and kratom. And whereas Matthew was a kind and thoughtful young man, and although he struggled with depression, anxiety, and alcohol addiction, he had found support in rehab and a sober living home where he had been living. It is indeed a tragedy that his life was cut short by a harmful yet unregulated substance that he purchased as easily as breath mints at a convenience store. And whereas Karen Davenport, his mother, and a nurse practitioner, is now leading the fight to heavily regulate or outright ban the sale of kratom in Tennessee to end such preventable tragedies and spare their parents, spouses, and children the unrelenting devastation of losing a loved one in such a senseless way. And whereas Tennessee has led the nation with its careful development of capped morphine prescriptions, a database to stop doctor shopping, and the closure of pill mills, yet we still allow the sale of an unregulated compound that is promoted as an all-natural, effective, and safe, but in actuality is proving to be addictive and even deadly. And whereas our families and communities deserve protection from harmful substances such as kratom, now be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 114th General Assembly of the state of Tennessee, the Senate concurring, that we support the strictest state regulation of kratom or even an outright ban on the sale of kratom in Tennessee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, members. We're going to go out of session to hear from our guest.
Thank you.
Yes. If you would introduce yourself for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Dear honorable members, thank you, first of all, for leading the nation with the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database. CSMD has made a great difference in the way we practice by allowing us to see the controlled substances that our patients are taking. I'm a wife, a grandmother, and a nurse practitioner at Memorial Hospital. I'm also a grieving mother who once gave birth to 3 children. But on March the 18th of 2024, my world was shattered when my son Matthew, one of my twins, died suddenly in his sleep. The cause of death was a lethal interaction of doctor-prescribed medications, Buspar, duloxetine, Benadryl, and an unregulated substance called kratom. Until that tragic day, I'd never heard of kratom, even though I work in the medical field. Matthew was a sweet, kind, thoughtful young man who struggled with depression and anxiety for much of his life. He worked hard to overcome alcohol addiction and found support in rehab and sober living in his sober living home where he had been thriving. He was living proof that a person could regain their footing with proper care, perseverance, and love. Tragically, that stability was cut short when kratom, purchased as casually as breath mints at a convenience store, played a fateful role in his death. I cannot adequately describe the heartbreak of losing a child. My husband and I watched helplessly as doctors tried to revive our son, only to hear the hollow words, "We're so sorry. We tried everything."
In that surreal upside down moment, I remember screaming his name and clutching his lifeless body, still unable to believe that the boy we had just hugged the night before at dinner was gone forever. Since March 18th, 2024, I've struggled through birthdays, holidays, and everyday life without Matthew. My family has been robbed of our joy. My grandson will never see his uncle light up a room with his quiet humor, and Matthew's twin sister, who once shared every milestone with him, will forever feel his absence like a missing piece of her own soul. Matthew's toxicology report confirmed that the interaction between his prescription medications for anxiety and depression and kratom was lethal. Kratom is marketed as a benign substance for stress and pain, yet it remains unregulated, readily available in gas stations and convenience stores. It claims, and I quote, to help you unwind, reduce anxiety, and ease you into bliss. Another claim is that it eases chronic pain like nothing else, targeting your body's pain receptors, opioid receptors. It's made from the leaves of a tree from ethical farmers in Southeast Asia. One product even claims it offers better absorption, giving you higher blood levels. It's been linked to numerous deaths in the United States and around the world. I've poured countless hours into researching this substance and believe wholeheartedly that no family should have to endure the torment that's gripped mine. In my ongoing mission to warn others, I speak to youth groups sharing Matthew's story to illustrate the real and devastating risk of kratom. And now I'm reaching out to you to provide legislative support, because no human trials exist to establish safety and efficacy, dosing information, side effects, drug interactions, nor any other medical benefit.
Our 3 minutes are up. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Representative Salinas.
Can you finish your statement? Did you finish your statement?
No.
You can finish.
Okay. Dr. Scott Gottlieb with FDA explained in February of 2016, the agency considers it an opioid and a chemical concern. Newborn babies whose mothers have been exposed to kratom are now being treated with the same neonatal abstinence protocols of those mothers of fentanyl, oxycodone, and heroin. Numerous states, Alabama, Arkansas, Vermont, Indiana, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin, have banned it. Also many countries, including the two where it's produced, Indonesia and Thailand. I urge you to consider supporting legislation to schedule or ban kratom in the state of Tennessee. With your guidance, we can bring an end to the preventable tragedies and spare other parents, spouses, and children and the unrelenting devastation of losing a loved one. I humbly ask for your leadership. Our families and communities deserve protection from harmful substances like kratom. Thank you for your time and compassion and willingness to address this critical matter.
Thank you very much. Representative Salinas, you have any follow-up? All right. Any other questions for our guest? Seeing none. Oh, yes. Representative Powell.
To come here and share your testimony. I know personally, I'm always shocked when I go into these convenience stores and just see countless different substances that are for sale. The public knows little to nothing about most of them. And so, it's a really unfortunate situation, but I really appreciate your testimony and know that you're doing a lot for other people. I know it's just an HJR, but hopefully we can keep working on this as a state to make sure we put some legislation in place to really tackle this issue. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions for our guest, Representative Scarborough?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor. I know, again, as Member Powell said, I know it's an HCR, but we need to be working toward banning this outright in the future. I can support the HJR, but we need to be working on banning this in the future. And again, for the sponsor, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our guest? Seeing none, we're going to go back into session. Thank you for being with us today. All right, Representative Hilton Haynes. You have any other comments?
No, I would appreciate all your support, and we plan to work on this over the summer to try to actually draft a bill and tackle this problem.
Well, very good. Any questions for the sponsor? Comments? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. We're voting to send House Joint Resolution 147 on to full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Joint Resolution 147 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you. We'll go back to item number 14, House Bill 729 by Representative Kiesling. You're recognized on the bill. There is an amendment code 3830. I think we were trying to track down. All right, you are recognized on that amendment.
Chairman, thank you so much. Committee, I'm so sorry about that. I just got the wrong folder. So anyway, yes, that is drafting code 3830. And it just simply amends or takes out, removes the sidewalk portion of the bill.
All right. You have a question on the actual amendment?
I did. Chairman, I know we spoke on Monday, and I, in full truthfulness, am opposed to the bill, but there was some concern I know from the in-house community about that. Is this that same amendment that the Senate's already adopted? Is that the one? I know you were going to check on that for me. I don't know if it is. Okay.
Sorry, it is.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
right.
looking to the chair. Okay, I'm sorry. I did not know. Okay.
Any other questions on the amendment? All right, seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting to adopt amendment code 3830 on the House Bill 729. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes prevail. You adopt her on House Bill 729. As amended, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, this just simply raises the offense to a Class C felony. Now that the sidewalk's out, it raises it to a Class C felony or a Class D felony if the offense committed involves the obstruction of a highway, street, or place in which vehicles pass through. With that, I'll entertain any questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. I have Representative Powell on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know originally we had some people who were going to testify. I think both of them unfortunately had some child illness and they couldn't be here. Familiar with that as a parent. But I appreciate you adopting that. I still have major concerns about this bill. I think it really unfairly targets a lot of people, and certainly think we continue to address this issue year after year, and I don't know. Again, I guess I do know what this is trying to get at, but I just have major concerns about this piece of legislation. So I just want to voice my opposition. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for our sponsor? Representative Salinas.
Yeah, I just agree with some of the statements that Representative Powell was saying. And I also have a concern with the fact that this is a felony. So anyone, and as we pass things through these committees, I like to keep things in perspective. But by making this a Class D felony, we earlier passed a bill, I think a couple weeks ago, saying that all arrests that have to do with felonies are DNA'd and put into CODIS. So if you are, if your bill is successful and it passes and someone's blocking, their DNA would be taken and they would be put in the database with rapists and killers. That's what we're saying by making this a Class D felony. So just to keep things in perspective, to me, blocking a highway, street is not equivalent to killing someone and shouldn't have the same legal consequences. Do you agree?
Do I agree? I'd renew my motion.
All right. Any other questions? Representative Scarborough.
Mr. Sponsor, we've talked several times about what is the burden we have in the state of Tennessee. I can't think of a greater burden than trying to make sure that we keep everybody safe in Tennessee to the best of our abilities. And to our other members' comments, of course, those things are not equal, but at the same time, it's about choice, and they're given the option. Your amendment allows for them to be on the sidewalks without issue there. But being in the middle of a multi-lane highway where persons are interacting with vehicles is an extremely dangerous situation. Again, your bill addresses that, and I thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Oh, Representative Atchley.
Call for the question.
All right. Questions called. Any objection? Seeing none. We're now voting to send House Bill 729 as amended to full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes, 2 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 729 as amended moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
I'm going to skip down here to item number 20, House Bill 540 by Chairman Crawford. You are recognized. No amendments.
Apologize there, sir. And this is the racketeering bill. I have brought it in the past. This particular bill deals with animal cruelty. It's been endorsed by the Tennessee Sheriff's Association and also the National Sheriff's Association. We have seen an increase in a lot of animal cruelty when it comes to animal fighting and those different things. This bill just targets the organizations that's putting these things on, who's setting up the gambling and human trafficking and everything that's going through some of these organized groups who are having animal fights. And what this bill will do is it will add this to the racketeering TCA that will make it, if they have certain things that meet the qualifications, then they could be charged with racketeering. It doesn't do anything about cockfighting. I know that's a rumor that's going around. It addresses none of that. That will stay exactly as it is now. But if they have another precursor to that, say they get caught smuggling or guns or some of these type things at a cockfight, then this would allow the court system and our sheriff's departments to have another tool in their tool belt to actually put some teeth in the arrest. I stand for questions.
Any questions for our sponsor? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, we are voting to send House Bill 540 on the full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 540 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
All right, we're going back to item number 16, House Bill 468 by Representative Reeves. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I've got an amendment to this.
Yes, 4927. Is that the one you wish to proceed
It
with?
is, yes, sir.
All right, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you. The amendment simply makes sure that this bill does not remove other violations that could be charged. The bill itself.
You want to get the amendment on the bill then? Is it?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right.
I must have missed that.
All right. Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, let's vote to attach Amendment Code 4927 on the House Bill 468. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes prevail. You adopt or own your bill as amended. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. So this bill aligns recklessly firing into a motor vehicle with firing into a habitation. If occupied, the offender can be charged with a Class C felony. If unoccupied, the offender can be charged with a Class D felony. Currently, firing into a motor vehicle, occupied or not, is a Class E felony. And this was brought to me by a local circuit court judge. I'm open to questions.
All right. Any questions for our sponsor? Chairman Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick. So how do we know that this wouldn't apply to someone that had a old car in the back of the yard or something, their target practice? Do we know this? I mean, I don't think anyone would actually arrest someone for shooting about an old car back to their house, but.
I would assume that too, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
I hope so. I just wanted to ask that question. So, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, objections to the question. Seeing none, we're voting to send House Bill 468 as amended to full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 0 nays, 1 present not voting.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 468 as amended moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
Item 18, House Bill 524 by Representative Mayberry. You are recognized. There are no amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill would recognize a defendant with veteran status in certain criminal cases to file a motion to transfer their cases to a contiguous county veterans treatment court program. This bill applies to cases that will be tried in Tennessee County, specifically around Montgomery County and others. Only cases that would fall under this VTC's jurisdiction, had they occurred in this contiguous county, would be eligible for transfer. Both judges would have to approve the transfer, and the defendant would be required to sign a waiver of the right to be tried by an impartial jury in the county in which the crime was committed. I stand ready to answer questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, are there any questions? I've got one question down here, and then we'll come back to you, Representative Powell. I've got Representative Scarborough.
Real quick, Representative Mayberry. Is there any additional cost to the county that accepts those veterans for the services? Do they accept any more additional burden?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is cost associated with this. Senator Powers has been the one working on that side, and he says that cost has been worked out within the budgets. So it hasn't been an issue.
No problem. Just quick question. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Objection. Seeing none. We're going to vote to send House Bill 524 on the full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 nays.
The ayes prevail. House Bill 524 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Chairman Committee.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Members, we're about to have to give up the room. We do have one more bill. You have someone here that is going to testify. So what we will do is we will call this bill up. We'll go out of session. We'll hear from our testimony, and then if that's okay, and then we'll move to next week. So item number 850 by Representative Renaud. All right, you're recognized. We will, Representative, we're going to go out of session to hear from your guest. And on my list, I have
Alistair.
Alistair. Yeah, Whitney. All right, thank you. If you will introduce yourself for the record, you'll have 3 minutes for comments, and then we'll open it up. What little time we have remaining, we'll allow the committee to question you.
Thank you, Chair Doggett and members of the committee. My name is Alistair Whitney, and I am legislative counsel at the Institute for Justice. We are a nonprofit public interest law firm that works in both state houses and courthouses around the country to protect folks' private property rights. And as a part of this work, we support efforts to close what's known as the open fields loophole, which allows government agents to enter private land without a warrant. HB 850 closes that loophole and is worthy of your support. As we all know, the Fourth Amendment protects one's right to be secure from the government's unchecked power to search and seize. And the Tennessee Constitution goes even further, and it protects property owners' rights or possessions. Ordinarily, courts enforce that right by requiring a warrant before a government official enters private land. I want to be very clear about what this bill does not do. It does not allow or limit anybody's ability to walk up to the front door of somebody's home in order for the purposes of making contact with the homeowner or the occupant of that home, even if you do have to cross what is known as open fields or open land. And it does not prevent the state from responding to exigent circumstances like medical emergencies or even the spoliation or destruction of evidence. Finally, it does not affect at all the regulation of buildings or elevators or medical equipment, anything of the like. This has to do with open fields. This has to do with land, forests, fields on somebody's property, and ensuring that before a government agent enters that private property, they obtain a warrant. Just briefly, this bill codifies what the Tennessee Court of Appeals found in its Rainwaters decision, which my firm litigated. In that case, the Court of Appeals determined that the statute allowing the TWRA warrantless entry onto private land was unconstitutional as applied to the property owners in that case. And I think this bill is a great way to codify that court's decision. I know we're running out of time, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you for that. Members, do we have any questions? Representative Powell.
I just have one question. Would this in any way impede officials who were investigating? I know we just heard of animal fighting or like some sort of agricultural thing that could be happening where the animals could be needing to be investigated. Do you feel like this could in any way impede those investigations?
I don't believe so, but of course it depends really on the circumstances of that. So under the exigent circumstances exception to the Fourth Amendment, say if there was cow or some cattle with suspected or proven to be a mad cow disease, that would certainly be a great risk to health and public safety. And I think that would allow a government agent to enter private land in order to investigate that without a warrant. But again, all of these inquiries are very factual intensive, and it may not be the case for something less than that. So I hope it may not be a satisfying answer, but it's very context and fact dependent.
Any other questions for our guest? Chairman Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just make it quick. You'd made the statement, sir, that this just codifies that opinion. It looks like this is much broader than that court opinion. So tell me, what it goes well beyond just those individuals that were protected and ruled on that opinion. But this is much broader, correct?
Yes, it is. So I think the court's reasoning in that opinion, that Rainwater's opinion, can easily apply to every single landowner's property in this state. The quirk of that decision and the reason why the court did not declare the statute facially unconstitutional is because of the narrow exception for wild wastelands or lands that are unposted, unoccupied, or have no indicia of such and appear to be unpossessed, right? But I think the important import of that court's decision is that reasoning can be applied to every Tennessean's property here in the state.
Okay, fair enough. You just made a statement that we're just codifying a court opinion, and I just want to make it clear that we're going well beyond that. But I appreciate that. Not saying I'm against the bill or anything. I'm just want to make that distinction. Thank you.
All right, members, we are technically out of time for the room today. There's several others that requested to testify. In all fairness, I knew that you had traveled a great distance. I wanted to make sure you had your opportunity to speak today. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Chair.
We're going to go back into session, and then we are going to roll this bill and all remaining bills to next week's calendar. We are adjourned.